Let's go and speak to Jake Richards there. Jake is the MP for Rother Valley this morning. Jake, the winter fuel payments, are you getting much earache over that?
Look, it's a tough decision, and we're having tough conversations with people who disagree with that policy, but that's government. When you're in government, you sometimes have to make difficult decisions. You can't always be popular, and I support the decision the government is taking to try and deal with the public finances, get a grip of the economy so that we can get the economy growing and start to invest in public services, protect pensioners in the medium term and long term, and turn the country around.
Do you support it? I know that in your own constituency, numbers of pensioners have been protesting against it. They think that lives are going to be lost. All 5 of the major Labour-supporting unions have dubbed it cruel and even evil. So why are you supporting it? Do you want a job in government?
No, look, I'm a backbench MP. I support the government's decision. Look, the country is in a really difficult position. We have a huge black hole in the public finances, and to sort that out requires difficult decisions to be made. This is a difficult decision. Of course, the policy is to means test winter fuel allowance. That means that the poorest pensioners will still receive that payment this winter. I personally support means testing. I don't think it's right or fair that millionaires were getting this payment. I accept, though, that there are those just above the threshold who, for them, this is a difficult decision. But there is support available. There is the household support funds and other government funds available to support pensioners this winter, and no pensioner in my constituency should be going cold this winter.
You know, of all the policies you could introduce, I mean, you know, I look at you, I look at your government, you see a socialist government, and you think they're there for the weak, they're there for the vulnerable, except you're not, and you must be being told that.
Well, Eamonn, I don't accept that for a number of reasons. This policy that we're discussing specifically looks after the most vulnerable pensioners. That's what this policy does. So the poorest pensioners will still receive the winter fuel allowance.
So all the trade
and the most important way of protecting pensioners...
All the charities are wrong that are speaking out against this?
The best way to protect pensioner income is by protecting the triple lock, and this government is committed to doing that. That means pensioners will be better off this year than last year, next year than this year. The state pension went up by £900 this year. It's going to go up by £460 next year. That is this government's priority, to protect the triple lock, to protect pensioner income, and that's what this government will do, and I support them in that endeavour.
Rishi Sunak has said a number of times that, yes, there are difficult decisions when you're in government, but this is a political choice that you have taken. You talk about this black hole, but you're happy to give a pay rise to £70,000 a year train drivers, and yet you're going to pickpocket pensioners, as many people see it. The Treasury just announcing an extra £10 billion of breathing space for you. You could choose to wipe all the savings, £1.5 billion, out with that easily, and yet you're still pursuing this, which will, as Eamonn says, single-handedly and disproportionately affect the most vulnerable.
Well, look, it's interesting that Rishi Sunak talks about political decisions, because the absolute disgrace of the last government was that they bucked all the difficult decisions in government. For the last 18 months, they failed to make difficult decisions about the economy. They promised projects when they didn't have the money to pay for them. That is why we are picking up this mess, because the last government, and in particular Rishi Sunak, both as Chancellor and then as Prime Minister, completely failed to get a grip of the public finances, to get a grip of our economy and make some of these difficult decisions. And that's why we're having to do that. And that's why Rachel Reeves and Keir Starmer are doing that, and Rachel Reeves will be setting out more details on that later this afternoon.
What do you want to hear from Rachel Reeves at noon today?
Well, look, I think what we want to hear as a party and a country is, whilst, of course, I think most people accept that difficult decisions are going to have to be made, but there is a long-term vision for investment and growth, and things will get better. We're making these difficult decisions because we have to get stability in the economy, to get the public finances on an even keel, so that then we can get growth in the economy, so that we can raise living standards, so we can invest in public services again. And that is what this Labour government will do. And I think we'll be hearing much more from Rachel about, yes, some short-term difficult decisions, but in the medium and long term, where she and the Labour Party will take the country. And I think that's an exciting and positive vision that people can get excited about.
Jake, got to leave it there. Thanks for your time this morning. Jake Richards is the MP for Rother Valley.
Well, Rachel Reeves is expected to today vow no return to austerity under a Labour government, but will admit that tough decisions have to be made if they are to deliver the change that they promise.
on this. Joining us live now from Liverpool, we say hello, good morning to the Chief Secretary to the Treasury, Darren Jones.
Yeah, good morning to you. I was reading over the weekend that you personally don't want just 1 or 2 terms in power, but 3, 4 or even 5. That equates to 25 years. That's a little bit optimistic, isn't it, given that your first conference in power has been completely overshadowed by Donergate and your popularity ratings is through the floor?
Look, I agree 5 terms was maybe a little aspirational. It was more theatrical flourish than mathematics. Although I would, in my defence, point out that under previous Labour administrations, elections are normally once every 4 years. And so 5 by 4, of course, is 20, not 25. You can see why I'm in the Treasury team. And we've had Conservative governments who have been in for 17 years and 14 years. So why not? Why should we not aim for a longer term in office than once in a generation, which was the point I was making to conference yesterday?
Well, since you've got your Treasury hat on and you're keen to do some maths, can we talk about these winter fuel payments and also your insistence on adding VAT to private school fees, 2 policies which, for a socialist government, do affect the most vulnerable in society, the elderly, and also, as we know, children with special educational needs. The savings from that paltry when you consider that you've just been handed a £10 billion bit of headroom, breathing space from the Treasury. So why aren't you wiping off those policies that are hugely unpopular, even with the unions, when you've got this huge boost from the Bank of England, forgive me?
Well, a couple of things there. No, I understand, yeah. A couple of issues there. Look, when we came into office, we found this £22 billion black hole. These were bills that the previous government signed up to that were landing on the doorstep of the Treasury, and they had put no money aside to pay for them. We had to get a grip of that. We've got to reset public finances onto a sustainable footing so that we can start to invest in the change that we promised in our election. That's what you will hear from the Chancellor today.
Everyone can understand that argument, but you talked about putting that pressure on those with the broadest shoulders. But what I'm talking about is you trying to resolve these problems by going after pensioners and children with special educational needs.
That's not quite right. I mean, look, the VAT on private schools are private businesses which in the past have been given the cost of an exemption on VAT, even though they've put up their fees year after year. And of course, some private schools provide additional support for children with additional needs. And for those that have a education, health and care plan, they will be exempt from the VAT tax change. But we think it's right that But we think it's right that private schools pay VAT in the same way that other private businesses do, and that money goes into our state school system, where the majority of children go, but have had real terms cuts in many years to schooling in state school systems. So that's a decision that we made. It's in our manifesto. We were elected on that basis, and that's what we'll deliver.
Can we talk about free gear, Keir, and a number of your colleagues accepting these huge donors, whilst we are also talking about taking, support away from the most vulnerable? Are you comfortable with all of this overshadowing your conference?
Well, I would just say to remind your viewers, because I think it's important that they recognise it, the winter fuel payment means testing means that the money we have is being given to those that need it the most. And if there are pensioners on low income who have not signed up for pension credit and therefore the winter fuel payment, we encourage them to come forward. We've put the money aside to give it to them, and they should talk to their local MP or councillors or community centres or give Age UK a call to make sure they sign up for that. But look, the bigger picture here is that you have to get a grip of public finances, which was lost under control under the last Tory government, because the public expect us to be responsible with their money. And once you've reset those foundations and got a grip, you can then start to prioritise investing in fixing the foundations and rebuilding Britain in line with all of the commitments we made in our manifesto and on the basis in which we were elected.
But you were also elected on this ticket of change, and you can understand, can't you, where there are lots of people who have voted Labour, some of them for the first time, who are really disappointed not only to see that the policies that you're pursuing don't seem particularly Labour policies, even 5 of the major unions voting today, bringing that vote forward to try and get you to reverse this policy, but also because of all of this Donergate, because of the fact that the Prime Minister doesn't want to pay for his own clothes. I know he said he's going to change that, but Rachel Reeves, we were talking about this earlier, giving a big keynote speech today, filing £7,500 in donations towards clothes as office expenses. Well, if I charged my clothes as office expenses, HMRC would be having none of that. Why is it one rule for you lot and another rule for the rest of us?
So look, parties in opposition, as the Conservative Party will now find out, rely on political donations to fund their activities. That's the way it works in this country. We don't fund opposition parties beyond some funding for their parliamentary duties. And Rachel Reeves, for example, the Chancellor, took a donation from a close friend of hers because she was on the road, away from home for long periods of time during the election campaign, doing multiple stops a day. And so her friend helped contribute to the cost of doing that. And she's been very clear this morning and previously that that was an election campaign cost. She doesn't need that now that we're in government and that she's in the day job as Chancellor of the Exchequer, which is why that's not going forward.
I just can't get past the fact that this was filed as an office expense. Are clothes an office expense? Or as you're saying, are they actually an election expense? There's a big difference.
No, so let's just be very clear. This is not funded by parliamentary budgets. It's not funded by ministerial budgets. This was a donation from a friend to the Chancellor to help cover the cost that she incurred performing her duties as Shadow Chancellor of the Exchequer during the election campaign when she was on the road around the country. This happens all the time for parties in opposition. That's how they fund their activities. And it was declared in the proper way. That's why you can see it. That's why it was transparently reported, which I might say is very different to the undercover work that journalists had to do to reveal the parties in number 10 under the last government and these crony contracts that were given out during the COVID period to friends and donors of the Conservative Party. That was very, very different.
Sorry, just to pick up on that, just because this isn't taxpayers' money doesn't mean that you don't have to declare it accurately. You know, transparency, as you say, absolutely key here. Alicia Kearns yesterday, Shadow Foreign Minister, saying that Labour offered a government of service. All they've shown is a government of self-service with latent efforts to mislead. Office costs turn out to be closed. That's in relation to the Chancellor. And a holiday for one is a romantic getaway for two. And that was the Deputy Prime Minister not declaring that she was taking her ex-boyfriend to New York at the expense of Lord Ali.
Look, as I say, office costs in opposition is around the running of the office of, for example, my boss, the Shadow Chancellor. There are lots of costs involved in that. You might hire staff, you might commission research, you might print publications, you might have travel costs when you go around the country. And in these circumstances, as I say, when Rachel was away from home for a long period of time, that included the clothing that she had on the campaign trail. But the important point is all of that was declared in line with the rules. There's no suggestion that this is a breach of the rules. It's perfectly transparent in the way it's been declared. And now that the election campaign has finished and we are in office, we're focusing on delivering the change that we promised at this election, getting a grip of the public finances and investing in the future. And as you would imagine, Rachel's gone back to normal practice because she's not on the election trail anymore.
Darren, you're looking very well this morning. Anything you'd like to declare to us?
I'm feeling good. I'm feeling excited for the Chancellor's speech. You're going to hear her set out today how we are on the path to change. We're going to invest in our country to fix the foundations and rebuild Britain. And I think after 14 years of chaos from the Conservatives, your viewers will be as excited as I am about seeing that unfold.
And you can confirm that is your own tie?
Yes, it's quite old, actually. I probably need to buy some new ones, but that's for another day.
Thank you. Thank you very much indeed for your time this morning. Darren Jones is the Chief Secretary to the Treasury at the Labour Party conference in Liverpool. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Angela Rayner, the Deputy Prime Minister, Nikki, is she's going to record her time in office with an official photographer. I think this is quite good. I think if I did this, I would love pictures like that. I'd love to have had pictures of what I've done throughout the years, official pictures taken.
But would you make the taxpayer pay for
that's
it?
the
Yes,
difference.
that's the point. Yeah, 68 grand a year.
No. He's on 68 grand a year, is he not? Is that his salary?
Yeah, paid for by the tax.
Paid for by the
Well, he's
tax.
not then. He couldn't be exclusive to her, surely.
Well, he's technically doing housing as well. He's got two portfolios almost. Not that he's a minister. But I think what absolutely stinks about this story is the fact that, well, first of all, she's the first Deputy Prime Minister to ever have requested this and to be given it. So that's
apparently
significant.
her office is denying, by the way. We should stress this. We've contacted them and she says it's not true. We'll see.
I'm sure. I mean, having read daily untrue stories about myself in the newspapers, I can seriously say that it is amazing what they get away with, or that then becomes fact once they print it. So I personally wouldn't be in a position to believe this.
Well, I mean, OK, maybe it isn't true. GB News' very own Andrew Pearce has done some reporting on it and is talking about the growth of brand Ange this morning in the Mail. I mean, the problem with this, again, is it's the optics. The optics of trying to look good. I mean, it's just so ridiculous. Haven't Labour learned anything from what happened with the Tories and the way they try to...
OK, all right, I hear what you're saying.
...force perceptions?
How does she look good then?
Well, she looks good anyway. People don't want her to look perfect. They want her to look real. They want her to look like someone that goes to work for the country. Yeah, I mean, look, we've all got to brush our hair in the morning and sort ourselves out.
Somebody called Rishi Sunak was Chancellor and he had a so-called vanity photographer.
And it completely
but
didn't
it
work.
was all part of a ploy to eventually become Prime Minister.
Sure.
Because he was renowned for being a super slick operator, and as soon as that... Perhaps Angela Rayner has ambitions.
Well, the argument here is that she's feeling pushed out by Rachel Reeves, so this is about pushing her back in, despite her being the deputy. She feels like she's the third.
Yeah, I don't care what either of these women look like, to be honest with you. I just want them to run the country.
Yeah, be competent.
Please just do your job.
Yeah.
That's all I care about. I mean, whether your hair looks fantastic or what you're wearing.
No, but what she's trying to do is to give the impression that she is running the country, and to look says, I mean, it's quite obvious. Angela Rayner is a very talented politician, right? But it's quite obvious that a lot of people would not give her the chance to be so because they don't like who she is and where she's from, her background and whatever. So she's fighting that, Dawn.
But if you try and manipulate your image, Eamonn, people pick up on that straight away. It's the thing you can't do. You've unfortunately, as a politician, got to accept there's going to be loads of terrible pictures of you all the time, telling stories that you don't want them to tell. You know, Ed Miliband and the bacon sandwich, you can't ever get away from it. People will be thinking about that, you know, when his obituary's been written, poor guy. But it's just part of the process. And if you don't like it and you can't take it, don't be in politics.
I mean, every day there's another story, isn't there? I mean, it's like over the weekend we had Bridget Phillipson accepting Taylor Swift concert tickets because her little girl wanted to go and see... Well, lots of people's little girls wanted to go and see Taylor Swift.
Absolutely.
And
Lots
she had a
people...
40th birthday party as well, paid for by Lord Darley.
With a £14,000 cake. That's a hell of a cake.
She denied there was a cake on
What is it with politicians
yesterday.
and birthday cakes?
Yeah.
It's just like,
She
make
said
it
there was
stop.
one yesterday, I don't know.